Hello and welcome. You're watching Head to Head on UATV. I am Oleksiy Mushak. The Ukrainian Parliament has prolonged the moratorium on the sale of agricultural land for another year. In fact, a ban on the buying and selling of land, which was introduced over a decade ago, have never been lifted. This means potentially huge amounts of foreign investment into Ukraine remain on hold. That is why moratorium has been a controversial and highly debated topic in Ukraine ever since. This time it has met confrontation by a bill submitted to the parliament proposing to nullify the voting results on the moratorium. This time we welcomed to the studio one of the initiators of such a bill. Joining us here is Oleksiy Mushak. He is the Ukrainian MP and also member of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on Agrarian Policy and Land Relations. Hello and thank you for joining us.
Oh.
Mr. Mushak, as far as I remember, opening the land market in Ukraine is one of the requirements of the IMF. And however, Prime Minister Volodymyr Groysman was pretty cautious about it, and still he assured that they would open up the land market, but just for Ukrainian citizens, aiming to protect the land from foreign buyers. So what is happening right now? What is the situation, and why does it seem that it reversed?
First of all, the moratorium exists for the last 17 years, yeah, and the land market is a requirement of IMF for last 10 years, so nothing new. Second, unfortunately, the moratorium and land reform is full of myth and untruth fairy tales, yeah, fairy.
Which exactly? Give us some examples.
First of all, we think that Ukrainian land is something that another country has no. In
other countries do not have.
Other countries do not have. Yeah. First position, second position. Many citizens and many politics think that if we open the land market, all investment from the whole world want to buy Ukrainian land, and for example, Ukrainian citizens will be without land and any possibility to work on our Ukrainian land.
They will lose the land eventually.
Yeah, they will lose, but it's not true. Yes, it will be high interest from the foreign investor, but it's take 1, 2, or maybe 5 years that when they come here, and in any case they will try to find a strong local partner and other things.
And eventually, if the land market would be open, it would increase the rent price for the land.
Yeah, you are totally right, and I think that it's one of the big problems, because now farmers, very big agri holdings, has a very extremely cheap lease, yeah, land lease. For example, you can lease Ukrainian 1 hectares of the best soil in the world for only $10 per year. It's totally cheap, and for example, in comparing with Poland, where the price can be 200 euros, yeah, so you can understand that this cheap land generate a big benefits and big profit for some business. So I think this problem, and also that till the last 25 years it was a big debate that Ukrainian land is something that, as you say, that another country does not have. It means that we, in any case, could launch this market, and myth and some business interest. This comparing do not permit us to open the market.
Who is having the business interest? The MPs who are voting for...
I think that there are two big parties of which have an interest. First, business, because it has the businessman has a very cheap law and the very cheap lease, and it means that the costs are also low. And second, it's the people who run the state land. Ukraine has about 10 million hectares of state land, and this territory is much more than, for example, Bulgaria territory.
It's bigger than Bulgaria.
It's bigger than Bulgaria. And this state land, I see the, for example, agreement of lease of state land, and it was signed for 49 years. Yeah, it's very long term contract, and price about $10 per hectare.
Per hectare?
Per
Just
hectare.
$10?
$10, yeah. But the best soil and other thing. And
so these businessmen and producers, they push on the MPs to vote for the moratorium?
Yes, I think yes. And also it's necessary to say that, for example, due to the it's called free privatization. Every citizen of Ukraine has rights to free privatizate 2 hectares of land. The total quantity of state land is reducing for 150,000 hectares per year. So Ukrainian citizens lose about $300 million every year due to the corruption, free privatization.
That's a lot of money. So you stand against the moratorium?
Yes, I and my colleagues stand that Ukraine should have a free market, and it will be a very good signal for business, for our business partner and for foreign investors first. Second, and it will increase the tax to the state budget and to the local budget. And 3, the owners of this land, it's about 7 million people, citizens of Ukraine, should have a right what they want. If you want to sell, no problem. If you want to buy, also no problem. But the problem is that now, for example, Ukrainian cannot buy soil land in his state, and for example, he can buy Poland land, Canada
land,
USA
yes.
land, and other things. And I think that it's unfair that in my country, the Ukrainians has less rights than in another country.
Who does support you, and what steps are taken so far?
Now there are about 50-70 MPs in a
From
parliament.
50 to 70?
Yeah.
Okay.
And who support a land market and who support a free land market. And we have some of civil society activists who also want to live in a free country, who support us. Also, some part of business support land reform, because, for example, yes, we have an extra cheap lease, but if we now have a full property rights, we can't launch, for example, some long-term business, for example, like organic business, and I don't know how it will be in English, but to grow grape, виноградарство, grapes, and other things. So I think now 70% is against land market, and about 30% is for land market, and this proportion is in the
30% of activists or of MPs?
I think that this proportion is in all society.
Mm-hmm.
I think that about 30% of Ukrainians support land market, 70 doesn't support. And the same situation is business, in the civil society and other things. But people who support land market is more active, and I think that they have more chance to win.
Do you negotiate with the MPs who were supporting the memorandum?
Yeah,
because
totally.
So far you're 50 to 70. Still, this is not enough for
this is not enough for
memorandum.
this parliament. Mm-hmm. Yes, but I think that we do a lot of work for a future parliament, future politics. Because if, for example, the first voting for the moratorium in this parliament, only 3% vote against. The second, last year, it was 7%, and now it's at 48%. So we have a good progress.
You've got some supporters.
Yeah, and I think that in next year, we will cancel the moratorium, and maybe we will be on one step closer to the land market.
But there were a lot of promises to cancel the moratorium back in May this year. So why would you think that?
I think it's Ukrainian typical situation or in Ukrainian stories that everybody says about for a good life, for a...
we will lift something on by the end of the year, and then in the end of the year, nothing happens.
If you look on, for example, about the visa liberalization with EU, it's also for about 3 years we speak that next president also, that next month,
next month, next
it
6
will
months.
Be,
but another confusing issue, in explanatory note in the moratorium says that lifting on moratorium in the conditions of war and economic crisis in Ukraine is a threat to both national and food security of the state, which can lose valuable resources such as Ukrainian agricultural land. How would you comment on this?
First position, now Ukrainian land is selling and buying. But it's in not 100% legal way. There are 3 or 4 ways to buy Ukrainian land, for example. First, it's mean agreement of emphytesis. For example, I can rent your land for 100 years and pay all lease at once. And it means that it's my property, yeah? Because if I lease it in, for example, in one city, in somebody for 100 years, yeah. First position, I can, for example, I have some land which not under moratorium, and I can, exchange my land, for example, 1 hectares for 10 hectares
of the land under the moratorium.
Yeah. And it's also permitted.
Permitted.
Yeah,
it's allowed.
It's allowed, yeah, by Ukrainian legal system. And third position, for example, someone can give me наследство, это как?
To donate you the land, to bequeath.
Yes. And these 3 and there are a lot and other ways to buy Ukrainian land. But the main problem is that the state budget has zero benefits from this agreement. First position and second position, the price for such land is twice lower that it can be if we open the market. And I understand that it can be threat, but I think that, for example, if we open a market 10 years ago, we'll have a more alliance to defend Ukrainian territory that we have now. For example, if, for allies, yeah. For example, American investors or Canada investors or EU investors or even China investors have Ukrainian land. It means that in a war with Russia, we will have a strong also economic alliance.
So then my next question is, how big effect do the limitations have on making Ukrainians once again the breadbasket of the world?
The moratorium...
How many do we lose? How much?
There are some forecast or some calculation, and it says that maybe nearly $3 billion per year we lose due to the moratorium.
Well, that's
yeah,
a huge
because for example, Ukrainian land is has the best soil in the world, but our field is not the best in the world. We have twice lower, for example, field as Slovakia has or France has, and this is due to the very low level of using new technology. Yes, because for example, we will the business will use new technology when they have a they should be 100% sure that it will be their land for a long time,
for a long period
and
of time,
nobody came to them and take this land for now. So due to the moratorium, we have a very short-oriented business, which thinking in a cash flow. For example, what I can earn only for 1 year,
and destroy the land, basically.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, then could you name the parties who are holding up the land reform the most?
There are three main parties who support. In half of, for example, Bloc Petra Poroshenko support. I think that about 60% yes, 40% against. People fraction, People Front, our partners for coalition. I think that the situation about 70% for market and 30% against market. And Samopomich faction, I think about half-half. Yes, half for land market, half against market. It's three main party in the parliament, and another party maybe also understand that it's necessary that land market should be, but due to the opposition that they are now in opposition, they don't want to support any initiative of the government and the president.
I understand. So as far as I understand, you do not try to succeed in lifting on the moratorium during this year until the end of the year, but you plan this to happen for the next parliamentary convocation. Am I correct?
I will do everything what I can do and everything what necessary to launch the market as soon as possible. Yes, and we work for this for last years, and I think that we have some achievements that also civil discussion about the land market now came to that it should be land. It should be that land can buy and sell. Also, we have another ways to open a market. We have a constitutional court, and moratorium is balance of human rights, of priority rights, property rights. Because, for example, we have a 41 article of Constitution which guarantee for every people in Ukraine that they can buy or sell their property. It's also about a land. And
but we're talking about agricultural land only.
But what's the reason? What's the difference?
Still, it's a property. Yes, that's correct.
For example, why some land, if they have no in a cadastre in a cadastre, for example, you have in a cadastre a number, yeah. For example, one number says that okay, it's agricultural land, but it's the same land, for example, in 5 meters from this. Участок это
territory,
yeah. It's agricultural land can be sell or buy, for example, in 5 meters from this land. Another land without positions that's agricultural land can buy or sell. What's the difference? Yeah, the same soil, the same territory, the same everything, and one is prohibited, one is permitted. It's not fair.
Well, I'm wishing you success in this difficult task, and thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you.
That was Oleksiy Mushak, MP in Ukrainian Parliament. Thank you for watching Head to Head. I'm Oleksiy Mushak. Goodbye.